Set in Malta, a country bordered by Italy and Portugal, field agents of the CIA were about to raid a place to look for a man named Ryder, but the target was not found there, making the one who monitored the raid, Colonel Hart, shocked, especially after they discovered that Ryder had made a note for Colonel Hart saying, "Destroy what destroys you." Shortly after, Colonel Hart got a telephone call from someone who turned out to be Ryder. The colonel immediately asked Ryder to stop, but Ryder ignored him. Ryder then entered one of the buildings carrying a sniper rifle that he had prepared. Meanwhile, the field agents finally found Ryder's location after tracing the call. He was in the city of Valletta. The colonel suddenly realized that Ryder was targeting the American president who happened to be visiting the city. He immediately asked his men to monitor the city via satellite. He also contacted the president's aide and informed him about this. However, because the aide didn't seem to pay attention to the call. After several calls, the president's aide finally answered the phone, but unfortunately, Ryder was already ready with his weapon and immediately shot the president. He then got out of the building and went on his bike. 6 months earlier, Ryder had just arrived at an airport and was greeted by his sister-in-law, Jenna, who was pregnant at that time. She came with her husband, Ryder's brother named Bulldog. He congratulated his brother because he would soon become a father. Bulldog then told Ryder about their next mission and that they would be handsomely paid. He decided that this mission would be their last mission. On the way to the base, Jenna said that Ryder should have a partner so that he wouldn't be alone. Ryder then said that he had previously been married, but unfortunately, his marriage failed. When they arrived at the base, it turned out that there were already their colleagues who immediately welcomed Ryder's arrival. It was discovered that they were former American Marines who had turned into mercenaries. They were all gathered to carry out a mission from the CIA chairman. Shortly after, their boss, none other than Colonel Hart, showed up. He was shocked to find that Ryder returned despite having decided to retire since the war in Syria. Ryder explained that he was forced by his younger brother to come along. In this mission, he promised that when the mission was completed, he and Bulldog would retire. At night, Colonel Hart explained that their mission was to hunt down a terrorist who often sold illegal weapons named Khalid, a former warlord who had a business of illegal weapons in Libya. His troops had carried out terror in America as an expression of their hatred for the country. The colonel said that Khalid had made an abandoned hotel his base, and that was where they would raid him. But the colonel also warned them that Khalid was a genius, so they had to be careful in dealing with him. The next day, Ryder led his troops were preparing to go to Libya to hunt down Khalid. Ryder was quite respected in the military and was even nicknamed the hunting dog when he was still active. After preparing everything, they took a helicopter to Libya. On the way, Colonel Hart informed them that the helicopter would drop them off 3 kilometers from Khalid's headquarters and they would be picked up later in Tunisia. In short, they arrived at their destination, but before entering there, they got rid of the guards outside. After that, they split up to search for Khalid. Several of the troops were tasked with hacking CCTV and the existing security system using a laptop given by Colonel Hart. Meanwhile, Ryder, Bulldog, and the rest began to kill the guards inside one by one until they found Khalid's room. But when they entered, Khalid had disappeared, even though according to CCTV he was still there. Suddenly, a bomb detonated. It turned out that this was all a trap. Khalid's men started appearing to surround them. Ryder and his friends were overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Khalid, who apparently was in a safe place, was contacted by his colleague to discuss a transaction. And it turned out that his colleague was Colonel Hart, the leader of the CIA. The colonel asked him to finish off Ryder and his troops immediately. The reason why the colonel did this was so that conflicts would come one after another and the market for selling illegal weapons would get busier. Khalid said that Ryder's troops only had 2 people left in the west and 1 in the east. He was sure that his men would be able to finish them off. In the building to the east, one of Ryder's troops was cornered by 3 of Khalid's men. Even though he could beat most of the enemies, he was eventually killed. Meanwhile, in the west building were Ryder and Bulldog, who was very badly injured. They couldn't stop thinking that Colonel Hart would betray them. They knew about this because the colonel's laptop had manipulated the situation in this building. They then attacked the incoming enemies, but unfortunately, Bulldog ran out of ammunition. Feeling he would not survive, he approached the enemy while carrying a grenade. His action claimed his life. Ryder looked so angry because Bulldog had to die. He decided to escape before the other Khalid's men arrived. Somewhere else, Jenna, Bulldog's wife, asked Colonel Hart whether her husband's mission was successful. The colonel answered that there had been no news from Ryder or the others, and if there was any news, he would definitely tell her. But when she was about to leave, the colonel suddenly shot her dead. A few months later in Portugal, in the city of Lisbon, the US president was talking to his aide. It was known that in the last few weeks, the president had an agenda to visit all his allied countries in Europe. The aide confessed to the president that all this time, he and Colonel Hart had been selling illegal weapons to war countries. Of course, the president was very upset to hear that, especially since he wanted to eliminate all wars, but his aide explained that the proceeds from arms sales were what had supported his campaign funds. In the end, the president didn't want to bother because the most important thing was that the aide and Colonel Hart had to cover up the secret. In Rome, Italy, someone was walking to a nightclub. It turned out that person was Ryder, who wanted to meet the mafia boss who owned the nightclub. The boss was a woman named Selina. Knowing that Ryder wanted to meet her, Selina asked for subordinates to beat Ryder as a welcome. Shortly after that, Selina's men approached Ryder and a fistfight ensued. Amid the fight, Ryder finally saw Selina and was then beaten by the thugs. The next morning, Ryder woke up tied in a warehouse. Selina approached him and said that the news circulating that Ryder had died during a secret mission in Libya. She even cried when she heard the news. It turned out that she was Ryder's ex-wife, and even though they were separated, they both still loved each other. Ryder explained that he wanted to take revenge on Colonel Hart, who had framed him. But he knew that the colonel conspired with the president's aide, including the president himself, so he came because he wanted her to help him. Selina refused it, because against the president was a suicide mission. She then let Ryder go and told him to leave. 2 days later, Colonel Hart was with his 2 grandchildren when he was called by the president's aide about news where a video a gunfight between Ryder's troops against Khalid's group. This of course made the aide and the president angry because they were afraid that their crime would be exposed. Colonel Hart ordered his men to look for the perpetrator who had uploaded the video to the media. One of his men said that the video was uploaded by someone in Rome, but they still haven't found who it was. Soon, the colonel's team found a photo of Ryder walking into an inn in Rome. Finally, the colonel realized that the person who had uploaded the video was Ryder. He was shocked to find that Ryder was still alive. On the other hand, Ryder was relaxing in one of the inns, not realizing that the CIA field agents had arrived outside to arrest him. Despite being alone, he managed to defeat the incoming attacks. Though shot in the stomach, he managed to escape. In short, Ryder went to meet Selina and he immediately got treated. It was seen that Selina couldn't bear to see his condition because she still loved him. 2 days later, Ryder woke up in a remote place. He then remembered what happened to his colleagues who had been slaughtered, including Bulldog, his younger brother. After that, he met Selina and asked where they were. Selina answered that this place was very remote and no one would find them. She revealed that she was afraid of losing him, so she decided to help. The next day, they went to a man named Polly, who was paid by Selina to take Ryder to Malta. Polly had prepared a special transport for Ryder. They would then meet again in Malta. On the other hand, the US president looked annoyed with Colonel Hart and his aide after the problem they made. He told them to take care of Ryder, and he didn't want to get involved in this mess. In Malta, Selina met again with Polly, who came with some of his thugs. After receiving payment from Selina, Polly said that Ryder was in the car, but he asked her to pay 3 times as much because he just found out that Ryder was a CIA fugitive. Selina refused to pay it because they had previously agreed. Polly, who was annoyed, intended to kill Selina, causing a commotion. Though Selina's group was smaller, they managed to beat Polly and his men. After the fight, Selina unlocked the car to let Ryder out and took him to their new hideout. Upon arrival, they planned to target the president who would visit the country in 3 days by taking advantage of the tunnels under the city. It was known that Malta had a lot of underground tunnels and catacomb networks that were built hundreds of years ago. The tunnels were like a maze. Some were dead ends and some were connected, so they had to study them first. After that, Selina sent her subordinate to check the tunnel route in the middle of the city, while her other subordinate was assigned to check the end of the tunnel, which was not far from the hideout that they would use later to escape. One of her remaining men was seen assembling a bomb that would be used later in the mission. The next day, Selina gave Ryder a sniper rifle and asked him not to miss the president according to their plan. Ryder then apologized for the events in the past that caused the two of them to separate. It turned out that he left her and chose to serve the country as a Marine. 3 of Selina's men carried out their duties to comb the tunnel they would use for the mission, and one of them was installing a bomb at certain points. The mission to hunt down the president finally started. Ryder went on a bike while Selina and 3 of her men went to the location they had planned. Meanwhile, the president was greeting the people of Malta. His aide received a call from Colonel Hart, but when he picked it up, Ryder had shot the president, though only hit his arm. Upon that shot, the president was immediately secured. Meanwhile, Ryder rushed down from the building and then went on his bike. When the president was about to be taken away to a safe place, one of Selina's subordinates detonated a bomb that had previously been installed. As a result, the president's car couldn't move. An ambulance came to take the president, but it turned out that the medic inside the ambulance was Selina and her subordinate who had disguised themselves. On the way, she immediately injected the president with a sedative so that the president wouldn't move while an agent beside hadn't realized at all. After a while, Colonel Hart realized that the ambulance wasn't trying to save the president, but rather trying to kidnap him, so he immediately informed the field team about this. As a result, Selina had to duel with the agent inside the ambulance, as well as his subordinate who was driving the ambulance. Meanwhile, behind the ambulance, the other agents immediately chased the car. At one point, Selina was able to paralyze the agent even though she was cornered several times. Her subordinate also managed to beat the other agent. The ambulance was cornered and ended up in a dead end, but when the CIA agents were about to secure them, the ambulance suddenly exploded. When checked, it turned out that Selina and her subordinate had entered the tunnel along with the president. After the agents entered the tunnel, Selina blew up the entrance, which made it impossible for them to get out. One of Selina's other men picked them up and took the president to their hideout. It was Selina and Ryder's plan not to kill the president, but only to kidnap him, because if they killed the president, then the whole world would automatically hunt them. When they arrived at the hideout, Selina was immediately hugged by Ryder. Ryder then revealed that he was still in love with her. That night, Ryder was interrogating the president. The president asked who Ryder was and why he was kidnapped. Ryder explained that he was a former Marine who had served America for a long time. He asked if the president knew about his aide and Colonel Hart, who had been doing illegal weapons trafficking. The president confirmed it, but he only found out in the last few days. Ryder then asked the president to make an honest confession and he would let him go after that. The president, who felt guilty, agreed. Somewhere else, a woman was seen in a church. She was the leader of the Journalist Association in Malta. When the woman was praying, she was approached by Ryder, who gave a flash drive containing the US president's confession. In short, the president's confession was spread throughout the world and the president decided to resign and was ready to accept punishment. His aide, who did not want to be punished, chose to kill himself. As for the colonel, he had run away somewhere. Long story short, Colonel Hart was hiding in Cuba. When he was about to leave with his car, he was shocked by the appearance of Ryder. It turned out that Ryder had already stashed a bomb in his car. The bomb was then detonated, killing the colonel instantly. After completing his mission, Ryder walked to meet Selina, who had officially become his wife again. They decided to settle in Italy to start a new life. It was revealed that Selina was pregnant with his child.